Hi, Ryan Sparks here with the third question. And just before I tell you what that question is, I just want to thank you, because yesterday I diverted a bit and just took advantage of being on a video call with Dick Stockton, so I just thought that was interesting, and so far people seem to have agreed with that, so, and thanks to Dick. What a great voice. You can see why he's successful in his business. So this question today is a question about putting, and it comes from Tome Lopes from Lisbon in Portugal. And he says, as we are all in contention and can't play golf at the moment, is it possible that you can do a video about drills for putting at home? So just a word about Portugal, if I may, first, because Portugal is one of my favourite countries. Wonderful golf courses there, great food, and Tome will probably know this, the oldest alliance between two countries in the world is between England and Portugal. Now, of course, Great Britain. And that goes back to the 12th century, when some English crusaders had stopped off and helped the Portuguese beat off the Moors. And that finally, the alliance was ratified in 1386 with what was called the Alianza Inglesa, apparently. Sorry about my accent, Tommy. Putting. Putting for me at home, why I'm filming myself here today is because if you look down there, there's a corridor, carpeted corridor, just wide enough for me to stand and hit balls. And I normally just putt down there at a certain distance, but I decided that I wanted to work on my distance control, which is by far the most important aspect of putting. So I just put a little mat halfway down the corridor, and I can move it to different distances. I've got 3 balls. I use them from different distances because I never like and certainly don't suggest putting, hitting the same putt time and time again, because the creative part of our mind gets very bored and will start to play games with us. And the idea is I'll putt and see how many of those balls I can get to stop on the mat. So they've got to be strong enough to get on the mat and not too strong to get over it, and it's only about this in depth. Another great exercise once you get back out onto the golf course that I've been using for many, many years, 30 years. I've done this with thousands of golfers, and that is putting from inside the green back to the apron, or back to the fringe of the green. Lots of different balls, different distances, and you take the shortest one first and then you move back out. The important part of practicing your putting is between each putt, stand up. Because we go on a putting green and we're leaning over, and then we walk around and lean, and we end up with a bad back. Yes, putting practice can be bad for your back, produces back strain. So that's a great exercise for getting the speed of greens and for developing your control of distance. And you can go all around the putting green with as many balls as you like and just putt to the borders at 1 metre, 10 metres, 30 metres, whatever you like. And by doing that, your putting will improve, because the best putters in the world have wonderful distance control. One other little thing to add to that is that if you've got a skirting board, you know, in between the carpet and the ball, there's a little skirting board, putting against that. Relatively short distances, but striking the putt firmly and getting the ball to bounce back a short distance away. It just makes your putting stroke that little bit more positive. And by being more positive, you'll strike the ball better, and good putters strike the ball well. I want to tell you a little story about probably the best putting that I ever did myself in a tournament. And this story has one or two aspects to it, but the main one is that it was in the Open de Guadeloupe, which is a French island. It was on the French circuit. And I went there. I persuaded my to-be new wife that this tournament coincided with when we were getting married, and wouldn't it be nice to go to Guadeloupe for our honeymoon and play a tournament, and would you caddy for me, which she didn't normally do. And she agreed, but one proviso. Yes, she said, but because the tournament finishes on a Saturday, it started on a Wednesday, which is unusual, and literally after the prize giving, it was back to the airport, fly back to France. I said, you don't pass the cut, because that would give us the Friday and the Saturday to look around the island, or the 2 islands actually, and have a mini holiday. And so I readily agreed. But when you get into a tournament, I mean, you're a competitive soul. I'm a golf pro, so I tried not to look like I was being competitive, but of course inside I really was, and I even holed in one on the 11th hole of the second round, and then hung on from there on in to pass the cut. It's possibly why we got divorced a few years later. So as you'll see, that with breaking glasses in the home and reneging on an agreement with your future wife, you can see why I've had some problems in my relationships in the past. Anyway, back to something seriously. Before I went, because I was suffering with my back, as I often do, I was with my osteopath, and he said, some advice on the plane: get up and walk around as much as you can, but keep moving position. Don't get stuck in the same position. And it doesn't matter what position, don't worry about your posture, just get comfortable and then change and get comfortable again. And he said, I strongly suggest that you relax as much as you can physically, including relaxing your sinuses. Relaxing my sinuses? Well, I'd had sinusitis, so I sort of knew that they're this sort of network in the deep part of your face. So I sat on the plane and I found that I could actually relax my facial muscles and gradually get my breathing down, and I could feel that everything internally was relaxing. So when I got to the tournament, before a putt, the last thing I would do, having sussed the putt out, is I would just glance at the hole and just let all of that go loose. And bit by bit, I'll be looking at the hole thinking, oh, that looks like an easy putt. And I putted beautifully. So many years later, and I use that when I've got a particularly difficult pitch over a bunker or from a bad lie or something. I call it going brain dead, and just all of this just goes very loose and stupid, because my body's okay, but it doesn't work so well when my conscious mind gets involved. So and about 2 or 3 years ago, I was in Norway with 2 very good friends of mine, Oyvind and Toto, who are sort of in the health business, alternative medicines. Oyvind, and we're in his house. Oyvind was a trained physiotherapist, but then he's gone on to other things. And I told them this story, and they said, well, of course. I said, what do you mean, of course? Most people think I'm crazy when I tell this story. And they said, well, when you relax to that extent, your eyes change, your pupils dilate. And they said, we'll show you. So they got a candle out, lit the candle, and they said, we want you to stare at that flame. Get as tight in your face and really stare at it. And about a minute. And they said, okay, now relax. Just let everything relax, just as you did with your putting. And blow me, the candle went from that size to that size. It grew in front of my very eyes. So there's some physiology behind this, and biology. So relaxation changes even the way we see things. So I think I was looking at that and thinking, well, the hole looks a bit bigger. So I think that in the major part, putting is not technical and mechanical. And I know I'm a bit radical to say that, but that's what I believe. I believe that the essentials of being a good putter are confidence, feel, visualization and imagination. So if you look at the top pros on the tour now, their grips are all over the place, and the wildest things, you could never have dreamt it. And they can all putt well, although I would say, does Phil Mickelson putt better with the claw grip? Just a question. And you remember from my book that I actually got to play golf with Bobby Locke, I doubt that anybody today puts better than he did. He was absolutely wonderful. And we came off the course that day, and in those days the golf pro, certainly the assistant pro, wasn't allowed in the clubhouse unless invited by a member. And when Bobby Locke says, would you like to come in for a drink, luckily I was allowed in the clubhouse. So, and we were in the men's bar, and there was lots of chat, lots of talk about, oh, the greens aren't very good, we've got these new mowers, and he said, no, he said, look, he said, your greens are fine. He said, but let's have a putting competition in the car park right away. And our car park was gravel and pit holes and all sorts of things. Awful. And he said, because I'll tell you one thing, before we even go out, I will win. Total confidence. So if we can get a bit of confidence, then everything becomes possible. Practice your putting at home. Be creative. There's lots of YouTube clips of people doing weird and wonderful things golfing wise at home. So just be a bit creative. And if you can think, how could I hit balls and get better at judging the distance? You're going to have I've got a fixed speed on my carpet. Slopes from right to left as well, which makes it interesting. So yeah, create your own drills, your own games. Create games. Games are the best way of learning. One word of caution, because you'll have been putting like for me, if I hit thousands of putts in the next few weeks, and then I'll be, oh, this is lovely, I'm feeling great. Go to the golf course, will I putt well the first day? Probably not. I'm on a totally different surface. Suddenly I'm on grass and not a carpet, totally different speed. So just a word of warning that you might not putt well straight away. But you've been working on the right things, so you'll go out and eventually your putting will improve. Just give it time for that little lag. I hope that helps. Thanks, Tome, for the question. I love Lisbon. What a great city that is. I love the Algarve. I've got a long history with the Algarve. First went there in 1971 when there were only 3 golf courses. Love the people, love the food, and of course the weather's a lot better than it is in England as well. So I hope that's helped, and look forward to videoing the next question, which will be in a couple of days' time. Thanks for your continued interest and support. It's wonderful. Thank you.